Alright, welcome back to Becky Amio Horse Training and ride number 16 on LR Blue Ambrose. And we're going to go out today. He's had a day off since the last ride. It got pretty chilly yesterday and was snowing sideways a little bit. The temperature here today is 28 degrees. And the feels like is 17. You can get that. Once we get out on the pasture, it's going to get an awful lot colder with the wind chill. I'm not really looking forward to it, but we're going to head out in a straight line and have a good ride. And I'm going to start working on where I can. I'm going to start working on asking him to pick up a lope, the lead that I ask for, and just work a different pasture. We're going to go south of us. And we've had some mares turned out in that pasture since they've been moved for a few weeks now, and so I need to go out there and show them a different piece of the country. So stick around and we're going to get right after it. Thanks for watching. I did change my saddle for this ride. This was also made by Mark Jones of True Partner Saddlery. However, the bar spread on this saddle is a 13-inch. If you had a chance to go back and look at my videos discussing bar spread, bar angle, how to find the pocket for your saddle, I discussed the bar spread, and this specific saddle is truly for those little teeny tiny colts that I ride. You know, I didn't think it was going to work on him at first, but he's not as thick yet, and I actually think by the time summer of 2019 comes around, he's going to probably age out of this. He's going to be too big for it, but it does seem to fit him pretty good through the width on it. However, I do believe that he's like a 42-degree angle, more of that quarter horse type angle, where the 43-degree angle is more of a semi-quarter horse angle. But again, angles are all, for each saddle manufacturer, it's all relative to that specific saddle manufacturer. So, you know, it really only makes any sense to talk about these angles and bar spreads when you're talking about a saddle from that specific company. So, otherwise, it's kind of a guideline to go by, but no rule is set in stone. So, this pasture that we're riding out in, this is the one that I started out riding him in ride 13, I believe it was. But we're taking it straight on through south, and we're going into yet another section that has a little bit more hill, so we can do a little bit of hill work with him. But for the most part, there's a lot of flat that I can work some circles with him on. Now, JD was in his pickup for this whole ride videoing, and so it was really tough for him to get into certain spots for me to be able to video everything along the way. And if you're wondering where Weatherby is, he's just riding shotgun in the pickup with JD. I did not warm him up before this ride, and you can certainly tell, and he just has kind of a little sting to him. He's not being as quiet as he normally is. But here again, you know, in another pedigree, another breeder, when they get this horse back, they will probably go to riding him. And let's say hypothetically he was sent to me by another program. They will ride him either when they pick him up or when he goes home and he'll be put to work. And some of the breeders that I ride for, they don't have a round pen, they don't have an arena. They get on their horses at the barn and they head out of the yard. And so I have to know that I can head out on these horses without any major funny business, okay? So that's why I do it for a few rides, to find out what they're gonna be, you know, if they're gonna be pretty honest. And most folks can ride through this stuff, that you know, the little grab his butt, can't quite go in a straight line, wanting to go a little bit faster than I wanted him to. Most folks can ride through that. When he takes the lope transition right here, and he just kind of jumps into it a little bit, that's kind of something that I was talking about in yesterday's ride, that, you know, you can tell the level of broke and trained by how they take those transitions. and he kind of goes into it a little speedy, and I just wanted him to pick up correct leads for me, the leads that I asked for, and lope a circle, break down to a trot again. I'm a stickler for picking up correct leads all the time. And even when we go out to the pasture, if I ask them for a specific lead, I want them to take it. There's been too many horses that I take at the 60 ride mark or take in for a tune-up that have been started by some cowboy, and they do not know their leads, and they're strong on one side, and they just flat refuse to take the lead on the other side, and there's nothing apparently physically wrong with them. Sometimes there is an injury there or something, or you'll see a scar or something on a foot, and maybe that's why they're stronger on one side or the other. But I am a stickler about this. I want them to give me both leads on when we go out like this. I don't want them to get heavy on one side, because they're going to get stronger on one side or the other, and then when you're tracking a wild-ass yearling heifer down and they're not willing to change their lead on their own and find it for themselves, then you have a horse that's not as efficient as the next one, because they're all capable of doing it. I stick to my original theory is that every single horse is capable of doing this basic handle. They're all horses. Some just happen to do it a little bit better than others. Some are better at using their bodies than others, and the lead at first that he originally didn't want to give me was the right lead, which, remember, we all know that his right side is his weaker side. So I correct him a few times, and now right here I'm actually asking him for his left lead, and he takes the right lead on me. And I think that's happening because of lack of balance on both of our part. He's got a little bit too much energy today and a little bit too much go, and that lack of warm-up in the very beginning. I didn't get his mind right before we even started. So I have to break him down again, and this time I just put him on the circle to pick up the left lead, and then he gets it figured out. And sometimes putting him on a circle works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how their balance is when it happens, and this takes a little bit of feel. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every time you put a horse on a circle it's going to get the correct lead, because there's lots of horses that I see loping around on the wrong lead in a perfectly good circle. So it's not a foolproof way to go, okay? It's just one way to help get it. But he's still kind of being a lot of horse here. I mean, you could see me kind of throttling back with my hands as we move out here. And I put him back in that circle again to help break him down, and then try to set him up again to take that right lead for me. And then I can put him in a right circle on this side, or work my straight line, whatever I want to do, whatever my plan is when I'm out here. And I wanted to lope him straight for a few strides before I put him on that circle. You can change things up so much for them out here. It really is a pretty awesome opportunity that I have here, that I get to work in such a big, wide open pastures, because I understand a lot of folks don't have this kind of country to ride in, and I'm very fortunate to be able to work here. One of the ultimate tests for me personally, when I'm testing myself, because I don't have somebody watching me ride every day, so how I test myself to see if I'm being an effective trainer with these guys, besides that playing game over and seeing if they'll go quiet, is I like to try to pick up the lope on a straight line. And it is a really, really tough thing to do, and it takes quite a bit of balance, leg pressure, supporting them with both legs, your core, and they have to have a fundamental understanding of the cues in order to have the impulsion to pick up the correct lead you're asking for on the straight line. There are quite a few rocks in this pasture, and so I have to be a little more careful as I walk through, but here again, I am not guiding him the entire way. He has to pick his own way, and he has to make good choices where he steps. That's part of the training. They do not have shoes on. I try really hard not to put shoes on 2-year-olds. You know, if I'm still going to use them at 3 and I'm going to take them branding and I'll be riding pretty hard in these pastures, like let's say hypothetically I was gathering in this pasture, you know, I would like to take something out here that had at least a set of front shoes on it to protect it. But really for something like this, these guys aren't wearing shoes for this kind of stuff. After watching my video footage, I probably should have gone to this side of the pasture first and worked him up and down some of these hills before I tried to work on loping him on the other side. But I don't know, hindsight's 20/20. I guess I know that now. I got a little bored going through some of this footage, and then I remembered that, you know, there's a lot of stuff we're working on here. We're building a partnership. We're building trust. It's good for his mind and his body to learn how to balance himself, carrying a rider, carrying a saddle, being cinched up in cold weather. And if you don't know how good it is to cinch a colt up in cold weather, go ahead and try it, because they can be pretty bronky. So, you know, he had to find his own footing. He had to find his own way. Of course, we have Charlie out there with us, helping us the entire way, being super annoying but super helpful, making sure we were following along. And, you know, you kind of learn a little bit about yourself when you're out here in 20-something degrees with a wind chill factor. You know, thank God all of this is mostly muted because the wind is really, really bad in this footage. It makes it quite a bit colder than it actually is, and you kind of learn a lot about yourself and what you're capable of. And I'm originally from California, and so the coldest I think I ever rode in might have been 30 degrees. And you know, where I lived, we did experience some snow occasionally and some colder weather, but nothing like this. So I've learned a lot about myself being here and riding these horses in these temperatures. I've learned a lot about, you know, starting these youngsters like this. When I was in California, I mostly started 4-year-olds and up. But here, you kind of got to get after it a little bit sooner, because the horses that are raised out, they kind of learn that they don't need us for anything, you know, and they kind of get an opinion about that by the time they're 3-4 years old. So you want to get after them a little bit sooner, and you want to remind them that they need you in their life. Otherwise, once this guy kind of, if he got a little bit bigger, a little more age on him, and he was living, turned out he'd be a little bit probably tougher to get along with. But right now he's super agreeable and super compliant, and he's really quiet and happy and finding his own way and finding his own footing and learning the best places to step. And this is really good for him, because in the future we may have to gather this pasture, and he's going to need to know the terrain just as good as anybody else, because when we're gathering, and if it's done at any sort of speed, I have to be able to just tell him where to go and how fast to go. And then he has to pay attention to the rocks, the drop-offs, the cactus, the holes, you know, that kind of stuff. That's his job, to pay attention to that. I tell him how fast to go and what direction. I just don't ever want to take riding out to the pasture for granted. I don't know when the next snowfall will be, or how bad it will be, or how icy it will be out there. And it's just not safe to ride out there once winter truly hits if you don't have your horse sharp-shod. And even then, you're still taking a chance. I know of 2 different folks that have had horses fall on them from slipping and falling on the ice, and it is not fun. It was multiple surgeries, lots of recovery time, and I don't ever want to have to experience that in my life. I've experienced enough, so I just as soon play it safe than sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and let him trot out of here and trot up some of these hills, play him out a little bit more because I still have plenty of horse left. And as I come out of this part of the pasture, I decide to ride the entire square section on this next pasture rather than take a straight line back to the yard like I did when I came out. I'm really enjoying this colt's work ethic. He's moving out really nice, at a good walk, got a little nod and bob going on him. The next angle we see here from this viewpoint, he really wants to move and go get a job done. There's some horses out there where you're always pedaling them. They kind of always act like it's Monday, and they really are the person version of that, oh man, it's Monday again, and it takes them a while to get in gear again. And this colt is not like that. I really appreciate and value that in him. So I'm going to keep on riding and add a little bit more to this ride. And I'm still going to work here a little bit on my leads. This particular section of the pasture is pretty flat after this part of the hill, and I'll have an opportunity to lope him a little bit more. And I know exactly what I was thinking when I rode this ride. I was afraid I was running out of time. I was afraid the weather was going to get too bad and I wasn't going to be able to get it done with him. And so I wanted to do and cram as much as I could into this ride. So, you know, there's a small glitch there. I'm sorry for the edit there, but I had put him into a lope and he was wanting to be a little fast on me. And so I was having a problem with leads and such, and so that's what that was, where you saw that stop there where I bent him around pretty hard. But I'm just trying to get him on his leads to make these nice big circles for me, and he was wanting to be just a little bit speedy, and he wasn't wanting to pick up the lead when I asked for it. And Charlie is not helping the situation at all. And kind of the way Charlie works, to give you a little insight to his personality, when the energy gets kind of revved up, he gets more revved up too. Like, you can rev the engine on the tractor when you're feeding cattle, and he will work harder at pushing the cattle away from you. That's kind of how Charlie operates. And so when things start to get a little bit western when I'm riding, Charlie gets a little western too. So there's a moment here where I'm going to have to put Charlie in the pickup with JD and ask JD to call him back. So right there, I did a drop to trot lead change, and I'm getting a lot of dropping the shoulder here. Like, he's just making smaller and smaller circles on me, and I'm taking that inside rein and elevating it up towards my outside shoulder to push him off my leg. And this is one of those, he's cheating me. He doesn't have the entire balance. You know, we have this trifecta here. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So he doesn't have all of the balance. He doesn't have the strength. He has more energy today than he had been. And, you know, we're in the direction of home. We have Charlie just being a total pain right there and being a huge distraction. And I'm trying to get him off of my leg to move over. Now, it may seem counterproductive to you, and it did to me for a very, very long time, to take that inside rein and take it up towards my outside shoulder to elevate that inside shoulder. Now, the best explanation that I can give you for this is that if we were to take our outside rein and pull him out of the circle, what we're going to do is we're going to take his head to the left, and it'll immediately drop that right shoulder to the inside of our circle, and it'll cock him off balance. Okay, that's what will happen. And I hope visually you can understand that as I explain that and we go around. Maybe I need to do a video somewhere down the line to show you what happens when you take the horse's head away from the circle. Sometimes it is the easiest, fastest way to get a horse to take the correct lead, but you eventually have to fix it and put their head the direction of the lead to begin with. So there's a couple different things at play here. Okay, well, here's an example of exactly what I was talking about. I'm trying to get right lead, and I'm trying to hold him together, and I've got the head to the right, and he took the left lead on me, okay? So that's one way to cock them off balance, all right? And the other reason I believe that he took the wrong lead there is because he's probably getting tired on his right lead, and he's just trying to give me something. I was also posting on the correct diagonal to pick it up. So at this point, I'm kind of a little more ruthless, if you will, about getting the correct leads, because I've posted correctly with him. My timing is right. Now I want him to take it when I ask for it, and if he's going to have this much energy, he needs to take the lead when I ask him for the lead. And I'm going to do some disengaging the hind end out here because he's bullying me, and he's dropping that shoulder, dropping that rib cage into the circle, and not staying in frame when I'm trying to hold him together. So I'm kicking his hip out a little bit and making him pay attention to that leg a little bit more here. And here again, I'm still going to change directions a bunch with him. I'm going to do figure eights with him mostly. Remember, the more we can change directions with them, the faster they'll learn and the better their footwork will be and the better balance they'll have. And the more we change directions, the faster we can down-regulate them and get their mind right as well. I'm not sure if you can tell here or not, but we're starting to get a little bit better circle than what we started out with. It's even, there's a certain amount of cadence. So he is keeping the same tempo in his lope. He's keeping the circle the same size. And I let him break down to a trot. And I knew my latigo was hanging there. And I go ahead and let him play game over. I pet him. And I knew I needed to fix this latigo on him. I go ahead and do a pretty nice inside roll with him. I play game over with him for a little bit here while JD gets to the next vantage point to video. And because I had plenty of horse left, I decided to work on some upward and downward transitions from walk to trot. Now, if you remember from yesterday's video that I said these are a great way to get your timing and get your partnership built with your horse. I usually don't start them this early in the ride, but since I had plenty of horse left, I went ahead and did them. Now, right here, I'm working a trot, and I got a pretty nice downward transition there from trot to walk. I go ahead and walk him a few strides. Now, when I ask for the trot stride again, he trots here, and I'm posting along with him, and you can tell the moment that I ask him to come down to a walk because I stop posting. But then you can see how many strides it takes for him to come down to a walk once I've asked him, and it takes like 7 or 8 strides. Now, obviously, that's not effective, and I need to work on that. What the game I play in my head is I try to walk 10 strides, trot 10 strides, and I want them to be back down to a walk again by the 10th stride. So in my mind, I'm trying to give them the cue to come back down to the next speed to decelerate in 3 strides from me. That's what I'm mentally preparing my body for. Whatever works for you. If it takes you 5, if it takes you 6 strides, if it takes you just 2, depending on the type of horse you have, if you have a push style horse or if you have a free moving kind of horse. But this particular game is fantastic for them because You know, it really works on their collection. It works on their top line. It develops muscle in their hind end, in their neck. It gets them carrying themselves vertically on the bit, and it develops collection that wasn't there before, and it gets them really thinking about foot placement and improves their gait overall. I'm giving you lots of examples of things you can do to improve your relationship with your horse, improve your training, improve that partnership, and this is arena type stuff that we're doing outside. So if your arena work gets boring to you and you have an opportunity to ride out, you can still do that arena work while riding out. And the change of scenery certainly does add to the level of difficulty of working on all of these things. You know, working on these things in an indoor arena is great because you have zero distraction. But as soon as you go outside and it's cold and the footing is less than desirable and you have a rotten dog that is following you your entire ride and nipping at your horse's nose, that changes the level of the game just a little bit. And it doesn't matter if you're riding a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, or a 15-year-old. Everybody can work on these things to improve their horsemanship and the level of communication they have in their horse. So what I'm trying to convey to everybody by showing you these videos is, I do expect a lot out of these colts that I'm riding and starting at an early age, because I truly believe that they are all capable of doing this basic handle. Remember that from the very beginning. They're all capable of doing it. They're all just a horse. Some do it better than others. You know, we just have to know how to work with the different minds that we're given. And as I'm walking him back home, this last little stretch, I'm going to throw in a couple of 360s. And these are really fun to work on when you're on the way home, because they really start to come around really good because you're going the direction of home. Okay, just like working a stop is fun to do when you're leaving the yard. They really don't always want to leave the yard, so teaching a stop leaving the yard is pretty easy. Sometimes this colt starting thing, this horse training thing, horseback riding, is just knowing when to pick your battles, your approach, your timing, and that's something that's learned through lots of experience. Sometimes that can't just be taught in a video. I apologize again for the edit in this video, and JD had to get out in front of me. He was in his pickup videoing, so he couldn't get all of the vantage points that he normally gets when I ride out, so we kind of missed part of the tree line there coming through. But this colt did get quite a little sweaty when we rode out just now, and I'm going to need to put a cooling blanket on him to cool him out today, and my cooling blanket was inside the trailer, so I had to get off right here and get it for him. I have had a regular blanket on him one other time when the weather first turned cold and he hadn't quite gotten his winter haircut yet. He was standing in his corral shivering, so I did put a light blanket on him, so he knows what having a blanket put on him is all about already. But this is a brand new experience to him, me throwing it over his neck like this, and I'm about to mount up right here and ride him back with this blanket hanging over his neck, so this should be interesting. I want you to notice also when I get on, I have this left rein a little bit tighter, and he goes to step off one step, but because I'm holding on to this left rein tighter and I'm using his mane to get up, I have a hold of him, and so he can't go forward really fast on me. I've got him already bent around, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to when they mount up on horses, on all horses, not just colts, is if they don't have that bend in their neck and head and that give in their face, if that colt decides to take off for reals when they're mounting up, they're going to be hung out to dry. He's walking back into the yard pretty quietly, isn't he? We've established from day one when we rode out that you walk back in quietly. There is no hurry to go back. And he's still going to get tied up for a little while until he cools out, and he's going to wear his cooling blanket. Alright, well that was a great ride out, and it was a great diagnostic tool to see where we are at in our training. What you witnessed there is a very typical problem I have on every single horse across the board. Doesn't matter how they're bred or what they're going to be used for. They all drop their shoulders, and it's one of the number one things that I deal with horses that are sent to another trainer and then to me next. That's one reason I emphasize with anybody who's going to send their horse out to somebody to be started or start it themselves, is to make sure that they get that lateral control and they can elevate that shoulder. If we don't address that problem right when it happens, we have a problem for the rest of that horse's career, and we have to nip it in the bud. And I think we showed out there that lateral comes from your leg and your core as a rider and your seat, and not from the bit or your hands or your reins, because this colt was kind of all over the place and his head was going all over the place and his shoulders weren't following. So we need to build that muscle memory with him. We need to get back into the arena with him and work on that. Thankfully, we were able to address it out there. There are some horses that I cannot get addressed in the pasture. I have to come back home and go into the arena, and I think my ground's a little frozen in my arena to address that, and hopefully tomorrow it's supposed to warm up to 40, and we're going to get back in there again and make sure we've nipped it in the bud. I believe that won't be the last time we visit that, and we'll have to revisit a few more times. It happens with every single horse. It's not just him or anybody in particular. So anyway, I'm really happy we got through today, and I'm going to warm up. I'm going to get his cooler blanket on him, and I'm going to get on another horse. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this video, and keep on watching because we have 4 more rides to go and trying to get through winter here. Thanks again.